I see a female with a halo, so it must have been a saint. A crown of thorns, skull, the stigmata on her hands. Who could it be? In this video, the focus is on identifying female saints who are not described in the Bible, but whose stories come from non-biblical sources. So no discussion of the Virgin Mary, her mother Saint Anne or Mary Magdalene, but stories about a woman holding a veil with the image of Jesus, the saint who is surrounded by music instruments, or this saint who survived a cruel spiked breaking wheel. When the title of a painting mentions Saint Catherine, it usually refers to Saint Catherine of Alexandria, but it may also refer to the 14th century Saint Catherine of Siena, whom we see here. Saint Catherine of Siena was an influential Christian writer, part of the Dominican order, which is why she is often dressed in something white, and a loyal servant to the Pope, influencing the return of the papacy from Avignon to Rome. Among her most noticeable symbols is a crown of thorns, based on a story where God asked her to choose between a crown of gold and a crown of thorns, from which she chose the latter. Returning to Saint Catherine of Alexandria, she lived in between the years 287 and 305 AD. She was a princess who became a Christian at age 14, and after converting hundreds of people, she was martyred at age 18. Emperor Maxentius initially condemned Catherine to death on a spiked breaking wheel, which is the main symbol associated with her. It was a torture tool for those who committed the worst crimes. So if you see a spiky wheel in a painting, you're most likely looking at Saint Catherine of Alexandria. But when she was put on the cruel wheel, it shattered through a burst of fire from heaven, and she was ultimately beheaded by swords. Some other clues to recognize her is that she is usually dressed in beautiful clothes and wears more than once a crown, referring to her role as a princess. In addition, she is also depicted holding the palm of martyrdom, like in this painting from around 1585 by Paolo Veronese, showing her in prison. Although, be careful with this palm, as it has also been used for quite some other saints who have been martyred. Another story about Saint Catherine of Alexandria that has been frequently depicted is her mystic marriage to Jesus, when the infant Jesus puts a ring around her finger. A nice transition from Saint Catherine of Alexandria to the next saint, Joan of Arc or Jeanne d'Arc, can be made, as Saint Catherine is one of the saints that allegedly appeared to Joan of Arc in visions to guide Joan's mission to save her home country of France from the British. Joan of Arc lived in 15th century France, and she believed that God had chosen her to be in charge of the French army to defeat the English during the 100 Years' War. And despite having no military training, she was able to convince Crown Prince Charles of Valois to lead the French army. Surprisingly, she led them to several decisive victories. She would ultimately die at age 19 when she was burned at the stake by the English. Many episodes of her short life have been captured by artists, but the easiest way to recognize her is by her sword, or as she is shown as a young girl leading an army. If interested in her story and many more depictions, I have another video on this channel exclusively discussing paintings about her life story. Chances are that when you see a woman with a halo and surrounded by musical instruments, that you are looking at a 3rd century Saint Cecilia. Her story is that she wanted to remain a virgin to serve God, but that her parents forced her to marry a pagan nobleman called Valerian. At the wedding, Cecilia decided to sit separately from the guests and the groom and sang in her heart to God. And because of this, she is the patron saint for music and musicians. Some saints are pretty easy to recognize, and Saint Veronica is one of them. She was present during the moment that Jesus was carrying the cross to his crucifixion, and according to some sources, Out of sympathy, she offered her veil to Jesus such that he could wipe his face with it. When Jesus returned the veil, it magically contained an image of the face of Jesus, and that is how various artists have captured her holding the veil of Veronica. There are hundreds of female saints, and new ones are still canonized almost every year, so this overview lacks a lot of female saints. And if you are into some specific saint, chances are that I haven't covered your favorite yet. But I'm curious to hear which female saints you favor or any specific paintings that you would like to learn more about. For now, I wanted to mention a couple more female saints that are fairly easy to recognize. This is Saint Genevieve, the patron saint of the city of Paris, and she is often holding a tall candle, referring to a story that she could relit an unlit candle by just touching it, even though the devil would frequently extinguish it. If you look carefully, you can see how an angel is lighting the candle. And just as an interesting detail, Saint Genevieve is standing on top of a spiky wheel, a reference to Saint Catherine of Alexandria, though I'm not entirely sure why this wheel has been included here. And when there's a saint holding an arrow, it is not Joan of Arc, but Saint Ursula, a 4th century virgin who made the pilgrimage through Europe only to be killed by an arrow together with many other martyrs. And then there is Saint Lucy from the 3rd and 4th centuries, who is often depicted with a pair of eyes or light as the people who executed her, or according to some stories, she herself gouged her eyes before her execution, rather than giving up her virginity. Finally, the 16th century Spanish saint Teresa of Avila, a Carmelite nun who has had a big influence through her writings leading to monastic reforms. And for that reason, she is often depicted with a quill in her hands. I hope you enjoyed this video about how to recognize some of the more popular female saints in art history. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be alerted when new videos are released. Thanks for watching.